This video continues from the previous. Okay, so water flows downhill, which I know makes complete sense. But contours can help you direct it. The natural flow of the water may cause it to flow into the house. And so there are some things you can do to alter the land to affect how the water flows. And these are just all natural. This is showing like this is what a hill looks like on the top of a hill. This is what it looks like for a stream. I mean, it very clearly is this is eroded, so it's very clearly flowing downhill. The lines indicate that this is a depression, meaning that it's flat, but in the middle of it, there's a hole. I have a bunch of those in my yard. Saddle is where the elevation's here and here, but this is like a gully. Like if you've ever seen two mounds of dirt or hills that have a gully in between them. If this was steeper, it'd be hills and in a valley. And then this is just showing how on a road, how they slope the road. And most people don't realize this, but roads are not flat. They actually have a crest in the center so that water runs off of them. So that's why they don't collect standing water, because it's obviously very dangerous. And that's what this looks like once you've altered the terrain. Okay, an example of a finished site plan. I was just like briefly looking at this in more detail. Yeah, you can see wherever the line will travel along and over. Whenever you're adding to a site, those lines become straight or curved because that's how we build. Okay. And this is a cut through, let's see, where's the cut line? I don't see the cut line. You should on this indicate a cut line where you're cutting through. You're cutting through somewhere. I just don't see it. And it may be on there and it's just escaping me, but you should indicate where you're cutting through the site. And in this case, it kind of looks like they cut like this and then came down and cut like this and came down and cut like this. So they got through all the buildings because there's no straight line here that cuts through all those buildings. But yet the end lines align with each other. So this is just showing the changes in the elevation within the site. It's beautiful. They picked a nice property. Okay, so why prepare a site analysis? Well, before we locate the building, we want to understand the characteristics of the site. Also, sometimes you will be part of the property selection, and by doing a site analysis for all the properties, you can help your client pick the best property for the design that they want. And this is a bit of a juggling act where you have to consider the program in order to know what's the best site. And you also have to consider the site to know how to later then arrange the parts of the program and maybe modify it. So it becomes sort of this give and take between the site analysis and the program. However, most of the time your clients are going to come to you with an existing site, and then you're going to do an analysis in order to know how to lay out your program. Of course, you don't want to locate a view from the living room into the neighbors. You need to know what's there. You need to be able to say, hey, if I put the living room here, they're going to be watching their neighbor brush their teeth. You also want to make sure that you know where the sun is. You probably have never thought about the sun in quite the amount of detail you're about to. And it's really, really cool sometimes to notice things that you haven't really noticed in depth before. Because now, I mean, I probably learned more about the sun doing photography than earlier on. just because the sun is in a different position every minute of every day throughout the year. And then it recycles, though it's still not in the exact same position it was a year ago because of changes to how, it's not that accurate, right? So changes to the astronomical calendar just based on how we don't rotate exactly on a mathematical timeline. It has to be a shift at every 4 years with leap year, and there aren't exactly 24 hours in a day, so that has to be adjusted. And nonetheless, it's close enough that we can just say every minute of every day of the year, the sun is in a different spot. And based on that moving target, we want to consider where that sun is at the hottest part of the hottest day of the year, and where it is on the coolest day of the year, because it's going to help us make design decisions about our building. So properly analyzing a site will help you make really smart choices, but also help you effectively lay out the design of the building itself. It makes it a whole lot easier to explain to a client why this is here or this is there by indicating, well, if we put your bedroom next to the fire station, every time the fire station goes off, you're going to get those bright lights coming in your bedroom. Or every time a fire truck goes off, alarm goes off, and you're going to hear it. Now, obviously, this may be a property we go, hey, there's a fire station right here. Do you want to live there? Or would you rather come over here? Say these are the two properties you have to choose from. Which would you prefer, a fire station or a playground? I actually worked on a joint high school, middle school in Elk Grove, California. And I was one of the lead designers on that project. And we had to deal with people in the neighborhood because they'd picked the property. They came to us with the property. And people in the neighborhood fought it. They didn't want a school. They didn't want a playground. They didn't want a school. They didn't want any of that in their neighborhood. And they fought us. They didn't win, but they did fight us. Okay, so we also have bearing angles on our plat that we get on our topography map that show, and I don't see them on here. Okay, they're numbers that will be along here, and they'll be angles. Yeah, I don't see them on here. I'll show you guys when I see them. You're also always going to have a north arrow. And when you go to orient the plat on the boundaries on your site plan, you want to rotate it so that north is straight up. It will make your life easier. And there are cases, I'm just thinking about this, there are cases where you won't do that, but most of the time you will. Okay, so a site analysis determines and then analyzes the context of relationships on the building site. And those are multiple types of considerations. So for instance, location, contours, zoning, noise, traffic, utilities, drainage, neighborhood, pedestrians, shape, property size, setbacks, easements, climate, views, vegetation, and man-made features. You should consider every single one of those. Even if there appears to be none, you want to consider it so that if it's brought up at any point, well, what about, for instance, man-made features? Are there any man-made features on the site that the contractor needs to deal with? And say there are none, you can say there are none. And then you move on, as opposed to saying, oh, I don't know. And then they go, okay, well, we need to find that out. And now we have a delay in the project. So, excuse me, while you are putting your site analysis together, these are the things you can always consider. And then there are more. There are going to be additional things that are unique to the site that you're going to say additional, right? So hard data relates to physical site data, which involves no judgments at all. Where's the site located? That's not a judgment, that's a fact. What are the dimensions, contours, what on-site features do we have, what's the climate, what's the zoning, and what's the vegetation? There's also soft data. And this is stuff that involves value judgments. What are the good views? What are the best approaches to the site? Are there any smells that you have to deal with? What is human activity? What is the type of neighborhood? Okay, and so this is sort of a rough sketch of somebody going out to a site and looking at it and coming up with some decisions and information to help them do a site analysis. And we're going to talk about these things in more detail. Actually, let me stop here just so we can start a new video without breaking.